Hey there guys, and welcome to the next time lapse here on the Duct Tape Stuff channel. I'm going to be doing a Nightwing time lapse in this video. I got a lot of requests for something Nightwing over the past, I would say, probably 5 or 6 weeks. So I decided to do something for that comic book character in this time lapse here. The first thing I'm going to do is actually going to make his logo, or his logo or symbol here. And then I'm going to actually cut out a picture of him as well. So first thing I need to do is cut out some of that electric blue tape. I have the printout picture there, and then I'm just going to trace that onto the tape here. And once again, that's the electric blue tape. Using a brand new blade in the hobby knife for this time lapse, so it should work out pretty well. It should be cutting through that packaging tape and duct tape fairly easily. So we're just going around the whole thing now. There's a lot of speculation whether they're going to introduce Nightwing to the movie theaters, to the cinema field, because with the end of The Dark Knight Rises, we're not sure if Joseph Gordon-Levitt is going to take up the Nightwing banner. But I think with the way that things are going in Hollywood nowadays, with remaking and sequels and stuff like that, and coming up with as many different videos or movies as you can, I think we can probably expect at least another 3 Batman movies eventually. So that's just the way that Hollywood's been going. So now we have the logo or the symbol on there. Now I'm actually going to work on him, which you can see there. This is obviously the cartoon version of him. So I need to print out or cut out a whole bunch of that piece of black tape, and then I'm going to packaging tape that piece down, and then very slowly going to go over the entire piece here. There's a few different colors I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using that electric blue again. I'm going to be using some white for his eyes and a decent amount of gray to add some contrast to the image here, which you'll see a little bit later on. And this is actually going to go on top of the giant logo that I cut out earlier to kind of give it a little bit of a background. And it's going to look pretty cool. You'll be able to see it at the very end of the video here. So now I'm just going to peel that up, and it comes up really nice because that hobby knife is nice and sharp. It's brand new where the blade is, so I just replaced a new blade just for this video. So now that's totally stuck down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that stuck down on the mat, and then I'm going to cut out all these other pieces and layer decoration them onto that giant piece there. And you kind of want to be careful when you're doing something like this, because every time you stick something onto that giant background piece, you stick it down a little bit harder onto your mat, and when you do eventually try to peel it up at the very end, well, you'll see later on, it is kind of difficult because you've been sticking things down onto it and it's stayed on the mat for a little bit of time. So there's his logo on his chest, and now what I'm going to do is cut out his face in the brown tape, or the beige tape here. The trick was trying to film it so that it was on the camera here, because I kind of put that whole background image right on top of my mat, right in the center of where I was working, so I kind of had to work around that, otherwise you guys wouldn't have been able to see anything that I was cutting. So I decided to use that little space underneath his fist there, which is still on the camera angle. So now I'm going to work on kind of his eye piece here. I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but just so that no one can tell who he is. So I'm going to cut that piece out, and I'm going to stick that right onto the beige piece here. And I think I worked on the eyes next, but I'm not totally positive. The trick there is trying to line it up with the side. So yeah, so I'm going to work on the eyes next. I'm actually going to freehand these. No sense in just sticking that down and trying to trace out the eyes, so I decided to do it just freehanded. So I'm going to line those up and then stick them right onto the eye mask there. Make sure it's straight, and then I'm going to work on all the little detail, which is mostly gray. It's kind of a little bit darker gray than what I have, but it'll work out perfectly for this video. Now the interesting thing is, when you're making something like this, the background is white, if you remember when I showed you the canvas piece earlier. So all the images, when you come to the very edge, like with that bottom of that gray piece there, you have to kind of overlap a little bit, because the black background is going to show up on the white canvas, or the white duct tape that's on the canvas. So you want to apply it almost overlapping the black a little bit, because if you don't apply it right on the edge, you're going to see a little bit of a black line in between the gray and then the white of the canvas, so you kind of have to overshadow it just a little bit. So now I'm very carefully going to stick those on. If I cut these out correctly, they should just apply, you know, nice and evenly. And you can kind of see what I'm talking about towards the left side of that gray piece. There's kind of just a little bit of a black line, and that just comes from not applying the overlapping piece, you know, all the way to the edge. But you want to always correct that when you're working on your on a layering decoration like this. So now I'm going to work on some of the pieces of the fist here. That's the border line. You got a few little lines so you can see where his knuckles are. I'm going to work on those next. Kind of just slicing those out. There's two little pieces, and then I'm going to work on the rest of the big piece, which is where his thumb is. So that's the first one. I'm kind of just eyeballing this with the paper piece above it. Now what I'm going to do is work on that giant, kind of like a upside down U shape, which you can see there. So I'm just going to work on that next. There's one more gray piece I have to work on after this, and then the time lapse is complete and it will look really cool. The trickiest part was peeling it up, and like I said earlier, that's going to be a bit of a problem. You'll see that pretty soon. It did take me a little while to peel it up, at least a lot longer than I'm used to when I'm peeling up most of my designs. So I'm making sure that this doesn't, you know, mess up when I'm peeling it up. Then I very carefully have to peel that entire piece up and apply it correctly. Usually I'd split a piece like that in half to make it a little bit easier to stick on, but as long as I'm able to apply it evenly at the top there, I can kind of situate where I want the gray pieces to be. So there we go. Now I need to work on kind of a shoulder pad. It's kind of on his upper shoulder there, and it's kind of hard to tell. This is a much darker gray, but it'll be okay when I highlight it with this kind of light gray tape. So I'm going to stick that on pretty soon, and then this will be the last piece before I peel the entire thing up, and that took about a minute and a half, I would say. So here we go. Now I'm starting to peel the entire thing up. It's funny, it's sped up to about 4 times faster, so it looks like it's a lot easier, but this actually took me close to a minute, maybe more. You just have to be really careful because all those pieces of duct tape are just sitting right on top, so you can't just rip the entire thing up because you might rip, you know, part of the overlapping pieces off. You might rip out like part of the pieces that are sitting on top. There you see it's kind of like a giant sticker, and then you have to figure out where to put it. I'm going to try to line it up on the bottom there in a straight line because that's where I cut it off, where the paper image ended. And I'm going to stick it right there, and that pretty much wraps up this entire time lapse. Hopefully you guys liked the image and the video, and I'll catch you guys next time on the channel. Hopefully you liked it. It's pretty cool.